Hi, everyone. Welcome. Bienvenidos. We are back. It's Ref and Ruby. We're going to have a whole hour of riffing back and forth about shared success, about expectations for men and women. So if you're listening, let us know by commenting. You can go ahead and just drop in the chat where you're listening from. And we're really looking forward to an engaging conversation. So this all kind of started through a conversation. Well, about a month ago, there was a news, I'm sorry, I cannot talk today. Okay, so I'm going to start over. About a month ago, Pew Research Center came out with a new study. And in that study, it talked about the expectations that Latinas are facing, that they were feeling double the pressure because of navigating both some of the American traditions and then also feeling tied to traditional cultural values as Latinas. And in the report, I want to share a couple of statistics. It talked about over half of Latinas report feeling frequent pressure to support their families and succeed professionally. It talked about how the dual pressures was heightened because of cultural expectations. 68% of Latinas feel pressure to cook and clean. 62% feel pressure to be beautiful. 82% of Latinas feel like they're not getting the respect that they deserve in the workplace. 70% feel like they're experiencing discrimination because of their gender, and 6% because of their ethnicity. And Latinas are about 22.2 million of the population. And so, I shared this, I shared a couple newsletters just with my thoughts and opinions about, what does this mean? And just encouraging conversation around it and some practical action steps. And Ref reached out to me and said, hey, let's have a conversation about this. How can Latinos better support Latinas? And so we're here today to have that conversation with you. And I want to invite you to be part of the conversation, even though you see Ref and I here. Like, this is a community conversation. So feel free to put questions in the chat, put comments in there. I don't speak for all Latinas, and Ref will tell you. I don't think you're speaking for all Latinos. We have very diverse experiences, perspectives, grew up in different ways. And so, but it is a conversation, because when we think about advancing forward, we all need to be on the same page, right? Because we're going to go so much faster together, and we're going to go so much farther. So with that, I want to welcome Ref. It's good to see you again. I'm glad to be here in this conversation with you. How's everything going for you so far?
Yeah, thanks, Ruby. Everything's going great. And thanks for having me and accepting my invitation to have this discussion. And like you said, I do not speak for all Latinos on this. I'm just going to make that caveat. And everything I talk about are definitely my own views. But, it's an important topic, at least just to get the discussion going. We're not going to solve, world hunger on this call, but at least we can start having those conversations. From a Latina perspective, Ruby and I, it's important that we are leading this conversation, and not just not us specifically, but we're examples of how Latinas and Latinos need to support each other, need to be each other's biggest cheerleaders, and just take time to have a discussion and listen. Ruby and I are, I don't know, we started connecting a lot since last year. I know a little bit more, but we take time to listen to each other's personal lives, professional lives, our journeys. What are we struggling with? Where we need help? I'm always advocating for Ruby, and Ruby's advocating for me. So it's a true example of what a strong partnership between Latinos and Latinas can offer. And our goal is to at least shed some light on what good might look like. Obviously there's work, there's home, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in between there. But definitely we can use this opportunity to talk through some examples of how to advance ourselves collectively.
Yeah, great. Thank you. When you hear all these numbers, right, I just went through a bunch of the statistics, and I know that you've worked with a lot of Latina women and, are very active in your ERG and the work that you do, and also with your book and the leadership programs that you have going on now. When you hear those numbers, what comes to your mind as from your perspective as a Latino man?
Yeah, I think I think you said you have to work twice as hard. To me, that stands out. So I'll talk about from a couple different standpoints, at least from my perspective. So the home life, it's critical as Latinos. We have machismo out there. I get it. It's out there, and I know people are different parts of that spectrum. I personally don't operate that way. So for instance, whatever's needed at home, I'm leaning in, cooking, cleaning, driving, whatever it takes, right? That's how my family operates. And so if, my wife does a lot of traveling, for instance, and so I'm jumping in wherever I need to jump in, or my daughter's jumping in, but bottom line is we support each other in the workplace. Even with my ERG, our leadership team, we do a great job of supporting each other. Someone has something, to take care of their family, someone else jumps in, right? And so that's how we operate. It's a true partnership. It's true unity. It's a team. And I think the more all of us can operate as a team, I think it puts us in a stronger position to succeed. Even when I think of home, again, I don't know, everybody's dynamics are different.
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, if I'm thinking, my own personal experience, if I know my wife has a big meeting coming up, and I'm asking, I'm not just assuming, I'm asking, hey, what do you have going on this week? And I make sure I clear the road for her. There's something there, and I take care of things as I need to take care of, right, over above and beyond, and do what I need to do. And if I can't do it, I'll ask my kids who are in their 20s, and they better do it, hopefully, But bottom line is you got to start having discussions, ask, be interested, and know what's in front of the family, right? If you're a single parent, I know it gets it gets probably a lot more difficult. I didn't grow up that way, and I don't have the experience, so I'm not going to speak to it. But do your best to plan for that. But at least from a Latino perspective, understanding the roadmap ahead of me, personally as well as professionally, and how I need to pivot and support, whether you're Latino or Latina, really doesn't matter. That I need to support my team, my family. Those are things that are very important to me, and I'm very thoughtful about those things.
Yeah. And I think from a single, myself being a single mother with two boys, I think the biggest thing that I can say about that is just finding a support network, right? Whether it's family, whether it's your chosen family, neighbors, friends, but creating your own village is really important. Because if you don't have that partner support, there's challenges that come up. There are things that come up, maybe you need someone to pick up a sick child from school, or you have two kids that need to be in different places at once. So finding that network is super important. I've been really fortunate, even with my ex-husband, that he has really stepped up, and we've really had a great co-parenting relationship. So today I'll pick up my son from his internship, and my other son will get picked up at soccer. So we both have are playing an active role in that. I want to talk a little about one of the things that our conversation was, there are struggles that Latinas have, and we hear a lot about the struggles that Latinas have. I mean, in one way, it's great because we're putting a voice behind some of the different challenges. There are a lot of Latina organizations that are popping up to really empower Latinas. I just saw a article this morning, and I think Dr. Patricia Condi Brooks had also just mentioned recently that Latinas are earning, let's see, I wrote it down. Latinas, there's a 300% increase in Latinas getting degrees since the year 2000. So we're becoming more and more educated, which is great. But I was talking now, I lost my track of thought. With all that being said, though, I don't remember what I was going to say. I completely forgot. Sorry.
No worries. We can talk about, just really quickly, if you want, we can talk about Latino representation in the workplace. I don't know if that's where you're going, but we can go there a little bit. It's interesting with the Latina. In one thing I want to call out for Latinas, just for awareness too, is Latino representation. The guys, there's not many of us also, by the way, at the senior level roles. For instance, I'm a director at my current company. And I probably know more Latina directors than Latino directors, and there are not many of us.
That's where I was going with it. Thank you.
Right. I'm in a global company of 62,000, and I probably know 10 directors, Latinos / Latinas, right, across, both of us. There are not many of us. So it's not like Latinos are out there killing it. It's not like we're out there, reaching all, with these numbers and making these high amounts of money. That's not happening. So one thing I want to level set is we are all in this thing together. And that's why I'm passionate about this, is because number one, I want Latinos to understand Latinas and Latinas to understand Latinos, and how the importance of uniting and operating together. When I think about, if we're truly, and I know we are, but if we're truly focused on developing and improving our representation at more senior level positions in the workplace, we have to operate as a unit. It's non-negotiable. It must happen. It's a requirement. It's not optional. If we have Latinas operating over here, Latinos over here, and we're not uniting, we're putting ourselves behind the 8 ball. So it's conversations like these that hopefully start to bring this together. And so I just want to call that out, Ruby, that, just a level set on some of what's going out there in the workplace.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And that's exactly where I was going, was that as we were talking in our conversation kind of behind the scenes, is there, we do hear much more about the Latina experience, but we're not hearing much about the Latino experience, and it is not any better. Latinos earn less than white men too. And it was interesting because I didn't know the numbers off the top of my head like I do for Latinas, right? And I said, I don't know what the numbers are. I found a report. I don't have the latest report. The one that I found was from 2018, and it showed that Hispanic men made 15% less than white men. And this report said that, and the Latinas made 33% less, which was to a Hispanic man. So that's about 48% less. And we've known that we've now gone backwards, right? Because we're, depending on what report you look at, we're at about 52 cents when we include 50 cents of it, where Latinas are earning 52 cents on the dollar compared to non-Hispanic white males when we include part-time and seasonal work. And that actually it's even less if you're a mother or an immigrant or have a language barrier. And on top of that, any type of intersecting identity. So if you're part of the LGBTQ community, if you have a disability, and so there's a major impact to that, right? We've all heard the numbers that Latinas are stand to lose over $1 million within a 40-year career period. But men are also, we're not talking about those numbers, men are also falling behind in those numbers as well. And when we look at the number of Latinos, men and women in leadership fields, is less, especially in the C-suite, it's less than 5%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even below the C-suite, middle management, senior middle management, those numbers are the same. So it's, again, it's not like we're all killing at these lower levels and then we're just not in the C-suite. No, we need to fill that entire pipeline. And when I think of leaders, I'm getting to leadership here a little bit. When I think of leaders, to be honest, I don't care if you're Latina, Latino, purple, black, brown. To me, a strong leader is a strong leader. And in order to start hitting those numbers and start in elevating our entire community, focus on your leadership. Leadership knows no color. That's the way I like to say it, knows no gender. If you're a strong leader, great things are going to happen for you. But to be that, again, there's so much that goes on with leadership, but unity is such a big part of that. Even I always use my ERGs as an example. It's probably, 80% Latinas in my ERG. And I can tell you, I've learned so much over these past couple of years, and I've elevated my game because of the Latina experience. I mentor and coach Latinas, but there's a lot of almost like this reverse mentoring that goes on. I hear about the single mom experience. I hear about the struggle. So I have some of that firsthand, at least the stories. I hear about the struggles in their careers, and that's where I can help, right? Because I'm a leadership coach and I'm a senior level, and I can offer insights that can help people. So it's like this give and take balance. And it's always done at a professional level. I hear stories sometimes, some people get in, have these interactions for the wrong reasons, I'll say, or mixed reasons, whatever it is. when I interact, I keep it extremely professional. You know, Ruby, our relationship, although we're friends, very professional, right? And so if you're gonna, especially as we're calling for unity here, if you're gonna engage one way or the other, keep it professional. You know, we don't, to be honest, we are so busy. We have so much other stuff against us in if we don't keep it professional, keep it focused on driving and elevating each other, we're gonna put ourselves in, you know, it'll be a tougher road. So to make the road as smooth as possible, just, you know, keep it professional, keep it authentic, and good things will happen. Did I lose you, Ruby?
No, it kind of froze for a second, but I think we're good.
Okay. Yep, all good.
And I do believe that we do have to work together closely in order to advance for all of us. And I think it's important just as much, you know, even thinking, I was thinking about the traditional, of course, I was thinking about like Marianismo and Machismo and how that might make an impact to how we're showing up. And I was thinking about how, like, as much as I've talked about Marianismo, I have not done the same research when it comes to Machismo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for us to understand each other's experiences. And I think what you're saying is, you know, really getting to know the person and leaning in and with curiosity and listening to those experiences and knowing that they're also very diverse. I was talking to someone recently who had, we were talking with someone that was younger and was, and you know, kind of in preparation for this, and I wanted to understand his experience, you know, and he said having these traditional gender roles of like that were kind of more machismo wasn't even an issue in his family because both parents, like you, took an active role in doing all types of things, and so it's not an experience that he had, but yes, he's heard of it from other friends. And there's also, like, I was thinking about, I don't know what pressures men feel when they have grown up with or been surrounded by some of those traditional gender roles of machismo, right? Like feeling the pressure to provide, feeling the pressure to conform. Like, I don't know what that's like for a man. And so when we just are able to build those relationships, when we're able to ask those questions, we can get a better understanding, I think. And like to your point, from a professional standpoint, also be supporting each other in the workplace and of course at home too, but also in the workplace so that we can all move ahead, right? And so it's sharing information with you and vice versa, you imparting some of your knowledge and wisdom with me.
Yeah, thanks for all that. And I'd like to hear what the audience thinks about these topics. I know this is a newer conversation, but please throw some, you know, things in the chat as far as, you know, what you've experienced, what you struggle with, maybe some of the questions that we can address, you know, as a team here. I know this is new space for us, but let's make the most of it. But going back to you, Ruby, you know, I think you said it best is, taking the time to engage and listen and learn. To me, that's the crux of it. You know, whenever I'm talking to anybody, Latino, I'm very intently listening. I'm listening for your personal experiences, your professional experiences, and I'm always listening how I can help. Right? That's the thing. And you know what? To be honest, to be vulnerable, there's times where I need help. Right? And I came to you, Ruby, at a time I needed help with public speaking. Right? And I was like, Ruby, you know, I have this going on. Can you help me? And I was in need there, right? And you were able to solve for that need. So it's really, again, engaging, listening, sharing, being vulnerable, and all for the right reasons. I can't stress the right reasons, how important that is. But so Ruby, I just want to call out that I appreciate, you know, your candidness and your friendship and your professionalism as we have grown our relationship.
Thank you. And it's funny because I still remember one of the first times that we spoke. Actually, I think we were both on the same webinar, and I think I asked a question in the chat, and then you were like, "Hey, let's connect offline," and we were connected, but I don't think we had spoken at that point. And so that was our first Zoom call, and then that was over a year ago, and you know, we've had several of these conversations. But it was really through that listening that we were able to get to know each other. And I think, what you were bringing up reminds me of allyship. And I think so often we think about allyship in terms of our white counterparts being allies to us, or, just other folks being allies. But it's also about, like, how do we be allies to each other? And, I think you've, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, you shared how we had gone through hypnosis on like a LinkedIn post or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we wrote this. It's so beautiful. It was just kind of like a testimony of your experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was, to me, that was allyship, because you were amplifying, someone else. And I've seen you do that multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, what do you think are some other steps that Latino men in particular can take to help amplify Latinas and the work that we're doing?
Yeah, so I'll talk about two different fronts. Again, at home, take time to listen to whoever's in your life, and to make time, not just take time, but make time to understand what's going on, the big things in their life that they need support on. Like, ask those questions and then determine how you can help. And help can take on many forms. Help can be actual doing stuff. Help can be a perspective. Help can be, helping solution. But listen carefully. Don't just come in and overpower and try to say, well, this is how I do it, and just go this way. That's not what. Forget just Latinos, but that's not what people are looking for. When people come to you, they'll let you know exactly what they need. So you can say, I can offer a perspective or whatever it is. But ask for permission before you just come in and barge. I would just say. Professionally, the same thing. When as an example, and again, I'll use Latinos, but I really apply this to everybody. I engage, right? I always make time to connect with. So whether it's a lunch, whether it's a meet and greet, whether it's just a simple connect virtually, how are you doing? How's your career going? How are things going at home? But I'm always listening to what I can do to help. But I always make it a plan to take that time. And even in work meetings, a lot of times I have just general work meetings, and we'll have some one-on-one, time, and I'll carve out just a couple of minutes just to check in. But as Latinos, if we can just take time to listen, engage, learn, and then offer, help or perspectives, again, asking permission to do those things, I think that can take us a long way. But do it intentionally, and make time to do that.
Yeah. And I'm definitely curious from our community. So definitely drop in the chat. How do you think that men can support women at home and at work? So drop in your thoughts. I have a couple things that I also think men can do. I mean, I definitely think it's the listening. I think it's the amplifying. I think it's championing and being a sponsor. I think sponsorship is really important. I know we've had this previous conversation, and you've talked about this in your book, that Latinos are over mentored but under sponsored. So if whether you're a man or a woman in a position of influence, like, think about how you might be able to sponsor another person. The other thing is,
Hey, Ruby, can I cut in there really quickly?
yeah,
I do want to
absolutely.
talk about the over mentored, under sponsored thing. The one thing I do want to share with everybody here on this call is two things. One is, do your research on knowing what a sponsor is, what's involved, and what they're looking for in sponsees. And there's a whole chapter on it in my book, or I'm sure there's a lot of resources out there. So number one, know what a sponsor is and know what they're looking for. Keep in mind that they are putting, usually it's a VP or above, right, senior leader in an organization, and they're putting everything, they're basically vouching for you in front of the entire organization. They're putting their name behind you. So in order to land a sponsor, you have to be sponsor ready, right? Sponsors are going to, be attracted by those star performers who go above and beyond, who sit in the front row, who are proven winners, somebody who they have a relationship with both personally and professionally. For instance, if I'm going to sponsor somebody and I'm going to put your name out there in a hat, for promotion or whatever, I better freaking know you. You better be a star performer. And we need to know each other inside and out, right? because I'm putting my name, my credibility on the line for you. So in order for me to sponsor you, again, you have to be sponsor ready. And so that's developing yourself into a strong leader. It's taking on special assignments. It's taking on leadership roles like an ERG chair as an example, or there's many other types of things. But I just want to make sure it's, it's not as simple as saying, oh, I need a sponsor. Someone's going to sponsor you. That's never going to happen. You got to develop yourself to be attractive to sponsors so they can sponsor you. Back to you, Ruby. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it really is about developing that relationship. Again, it goes back to the relationship, really getting to know someone. What drives them? Why would they be a good fit? What are their strengths? What are things that they need to work on? So there's a really important conversation there around sponsorship.
Yeah. And just a follow up too, you talked about what Latinos can do. For instance, I'll talk about what I do. So I do advocate a lot for Latinas. And so even within the walls of my organization, I make warm introductions to senior leaders. I make introductions to potential, mentors and subject matter experts. I refer for positions at the highest levels and make those strong recommendations. Like I do those things, right? But at the end of the day, all of us should be doing those things. It shouldn't just be, senior leaders or whatever. All of us should be supporting each other, making introductions when you can, supporting wherever you can, things like that. Even if you're not a senior leader and you know somebody well that somebody's trying to get in a different department, help them out. Give a good word. And sometimes going to your point, Ruby, about having those relationships. If someone trusts you and trust your decision making, they're going to trust your word when it comes to somebody. So use that to our advantage.
Yeah, thank you. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things that I think is really important that I would ask of men, in terms of allyship is also, and I'm just going to be really frank here, and I don't want to get derailed from the conversation, but, I have seen some Latino men get involved in situations or put themselves in situations where maybe they weren't being the most professional and they had other agendas. And I think it's important for our allies, for someone like you, when we see that going on, to be able to call people out on it, and not even when as women, we also need to be able to call it out as well. Because there is kind of what I've been calling this fake allyship. And we don't, to your point, we don't have time for that. Mm-hmm. We don't have time for it, but I do want to acknowledge it because I've heard quite a few stories come up recently about, men who said they were allies and then really had other intentions. And I think it's important, from an allyship perspective, is not only for us to be able to voice it ourselves, but if you're a man and you see another man doing it or hearing about it, that you're also calling that out or challenging it. Because we need to learn to do better, right? When it comes to when we think about advancing for all.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ruby. And, when you brought that up earlier today, I couldn't help but think, how we need to keep it professional. I think we're talking about that. And the reason being, there's multiple reasons. Number one, it's the right thing to do. But secondly is, for instance, I'll just use myself as an example. I talk of everybody I speak to, probably 90% are Latinas, because Latinas are the ones that are out there just kind of full force, right? And I love that. I want
to hear from the men, by the way. I would love to hear more from the men. I know I hear a lot of my content towards women, but I'm really curious what is going on with Latino men too. So feel free to drop that in the chat. I love all the Latina empowerment, but I'm also very curious about, the men's perspective and what they're going through.
Yeah. And I plan to run a focus group separately on that, but to bring it back to what you just said about, people getting in for the wrong reasons, right away, I think of my brand. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't want to be known as the creeper or whatever it is. That's not, and I don't do it not to be known as that, but yes, that's the last thing that I want associated to my name. I'm very intentional about my brand. I'm very aware of it and how I want to project myself to the world, right? Because it's a big part of me, and professionally as well as personally. And so And so to protect my brand, I always want to make sure I want professional, professional at all times. I want somebody who's relatable and someone who's helpful, right? Those are the things that I lead with. And so as we start to have these conversations, Latinas, and fine, some relationships might take off, who knows? But for the most part, go in with great intentions, go in with the intention to help and keep it professional and always be aware of your brand, because to Ruby's point, the last thing you want is some sort of weird name being attached to you, and that follows you, and people talk, so be aware.
Yeah, exactly. There's a comment in the chat, and someone said that I feel like Latinos and Latinas struggle with trusting each other professionally. What are your thoughts?
I can't speak for Latinas, excuse me. I speak to a ton of Latinas, and Ruby, you could speak about our personal relationship and what you think of me. Maybe I'm a creep in your mind.
No, absolutely not.
But again, it goes back to keeping every relationship professional. Because if you keep it professional, what are people going to say? He's professional, right? There's no other out there. Unless they make up with something, I guess that's possible. But for the most part, people are very, very great about that. In my experience, at least, it's been great working with Latinas. Again, the passion, the fire, the go-getter attitude. That's when I think of Latinas, that's what sticks out to me, and that's what gets me excited about partnering with them. So to answer the question from my standpoint, professionally, it's been a great experience. Ruby, how about yourself?
I think for me also, for the most part, I would say like 9 out of 10, it's been a positive experience. I think the biggest thing is, when I hear this question, what I think of, and I'm not sure, and you can comment if you're on here. I'm not sure. It just says LinkedIn user, so I can't tell who's making the comment. But when I think of this comment, what comes up for me is I wonder if what you're referring to is whether there's a struggle in trusting each other professionally because we're viewing each other as competition. I don't know if that's what you're asking or not. But it does make me think about how sometimes we get into a scarcity mindset and thinking like there's only one seat, and so we're competing with each other. And we need to think of it in an abundance mindset. And when one of us gets into that position, also thinking about reaching your hand behind and pulling up someone with you. Right.
Let me jump in on that, Ruby, too. If it is from a competition standpoint, and Ruby talked about the abundance mentality. Number one, if we are competing against each other, we're done, right? That Latinos are done. We cannot operate that way. And so number one is we have to come together. I personally count on Latinos to excel. Me excelling is one thing, or if one person excels here, that's one thing. But if we all excel together, that's going to start making a difference, right? And that's where our focus needs to be. The more of us that make it, I don't care if it's 9 Latinos, 1 Latino, or vice versa. We all should be making it. We should all be cheering each other on. And then also, how do we follow those footsteps? The whole abundance thing, we got to be all over that and then some. Support each other, cheerlead, and encourage each other, right? And that's the whole point of this conversation, is that all this needs to come together as one so we can make a difference here.
Yeah. There's another question here from Arleth who says, what are some tips on listening intentionally? I'm not the best at remembering everything, especially if it's a long meeting and conversation. I'll just say, I kind of just start off with, I'm not very good at remember everything either, which is why I have notes, right? As you saw, I got lost in my own thoughts. But I think one of the tips on listening intentionally, well, there's two things I would say is, if you're in a meeting, use AI. Like, I don't always, if I'm writing things or whatever, like I now use Firefly or Otter, or use an app to be able to capture information if you're not remembering, that way that you can go back to it. So that's been really helpful. And, like I have some notes here and I realized like, okay, I'm focusing too much on my notes, and I'm just being real transparent with you. And then I was like, just be present. I've talked to Ref a million times. I was fine talking to him right before we got on, right? And I was like, put the notes aside. Like, yes, you have them there if you need them. But part of it is just, when you're listening intentionally, is just really being present. It's not thinking about the next question. It's not thinking about what am I going to do next. it's just listening and leaning in with curiosity, asking questions. It's okay if you don't remember everything. You can always just ask again, or like I said, if it's Fireflies or Otter that you're using, you can go back and review your notes.
Yeah, and just to follow up, what I do is I also do notes. If for instance, I got my notes here that I'm capturing along the way. And what I typically do is make it very conversational, right? A lot of good eye contact. Your body language has to be on point. Ask a lot of good questions. Be curious, which I'm sure if you're having conversation, I'm sure you are curious. But write down short notes. It doesn't have to be long, drawn out, copious, verbatim. But capture key points. And you know what? Your listener, whoever you're engaging with, will actually appreciate that. It shows you're listening. It shows that you're capturing key thoughts, and you're internalizing those things. So take the time to really capture the essence of some of the things. And by no means do I remember everything, so I have to write things down to make sure I'm on point there.
Yeah, thank you, Arleth, for that question. Stephanie says, so there was a conversation going on in the chat, but the big thing is about competition silos hinder us instead of taking someone along and learning from each other. We need to know that we're better as many and stop putting up blocks that hold us back. Vamos juntos. I couldn't agree with you more, Stephanie.
Yeah, like I said, working in silos or competitively, I'm just going to say it's total BS. We should not be doing that ever. We have to come together. I'm going to keep harping on that. And, Stephanie's part of my leadership team cohort, and she's phenomenal, by the way. Please hook up with Stephanie. But, and Stephanie's a no BS type of leader as well. It's like, we don't got time for that. And I'll say, even in my ERG, we don't have time for strife. We don't have time for people not, uniting and organizing and teaming up. We're a team, period. And so I don't care if you're Latino, and we have allies, non-Latinos leaning in, and what's expected is greatness. It's a result and it's excellence. And I would hope that we all start to operate that way.
Yeah. And I think this is such a important point about not operating in silos. And there are so many great organizations doing fantastic work. And as I see numbers like this come out from like the Pew Research study, or recently the Lean In report also came out, and there was some disappointing statistics, to say the least, in that one also. One of the questions that I've really grappled with myself, when we've also talked about this, Ref, is, everyone's doing their own thing, it seems like. Even within organizations, everyone's kind of approaching things the same way. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of sick and fed up of seeing these numbers, like of seeing the underrepresentation, of seeing the pay wage gap. And I get really frustrated. Because I'm like, I don't want to just talk about it. I already know the numbers. And even when that Lean In report came out, like I didn't even look at it right away because I was like, I can't take it. I already know what it's going to say. Right. And so when we think about moving in one direction, what does that mean? How do we organize in order to do that? Because right now everyone's kind of operating in their individual silos and tackling things, and we don't have the momentum when we're doing that. So how do we create that momentum?
Yeah, that's a great call out, Ruby. It's the silos, and now I know we're going bigger picture, which is great. And like you, Ruby, I know the numbers. I'm beyond the numbers at this point. I'm done talking about the numbers. Now it's, what do we do about it, right? That's where I am. And so when I think about it, if you want different numbers, that means we have to do something differently, period. We have a lot of programming in place, with a lot of different organizations. Ruby, I know you work with ASA, and there's others, right? And there's a lot of programming out there, but the numbers are not changing, right? And so we need to do something differently. And so one thing we need to do, and Ruby, I told you about this the other day, and I'll give you everybody a very brief preview here, and I know Stephanie's on, she's part of this, is we're in the process of developing a national Latino leadership strategy that everybody can align to, organize, support, and drive. So literally everybody in the nation has a role to play in plugging into the strategy. And so, Ruby, to your point, we need to do something differently. And one thing is to come up with a national plan that everybody can support and help drive, right? That's our first step on this thing. The other thing to change the numbers is, if we really want to see, forget just Latinos, but also Latinos, overall, just Latino population. If we want to change the numbers, we got to do differently. So that means you have to develop yourselves. There's great stuff out there, but you have to commit to development and then commit to results. And that's the key thing is the results piece. It's cool to go to these programs, but if you're not, for instance, I'll just use my program as a quick example. In my program, it's all about results and accountability. If you're not getting VP mentors and sponsors, you're expected to get VP mentors and sponsors. You're expected to get special assignments opened up by VP mentors or sponsors. You're expected to get on the path towards a promotion. Those are real tangible results. And once you start nailing these things, then it becomes a snowball effect. Then it's like, okay, what's going to be the next role, right? What's going to be the next opportunity? It gets you behaving different. I shouldn't say behaving, but it gets you operating differently in the workplace. As Latinos, and that's just one example. That's how my program's built. It doesn't matter what program you're in, if you're in an ASIS program or a SADIS program or Prospanica or whoever, take these, but hold yourself accountable for achieving these results. You got to see movement in the workplace, right? And as you move up, and there's great stuff out there. If you go to my LinkedIn, there's a webcast on how to ask for promotion and how to negotiate your salary by 3 of the leading Latina HR leaders in the nation. Look at that because it'll set you up for success. Bottom line is you need movement, right? You need accountability. And if you put all this stuff together, you're going to drive acceleration. Once you do that, the numbers are going to start to change. But we got to hold ourselves accountable for results, not just participation, but actually results out of this thing.
Yeah. Hopefully, and what I hear you saying that, Ref, is it is operating as a high level leader before you're actually in the role. So be kind of like becoming that person. What are the actions, behaviors, thoughts that a leader at that level takes on, and start to embody that so that you can position yourself. So, so you start being it before you're doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly. So for instance, when I do a lot of meet and greets, people are reaching out. I'm an ERG leader and author and all this stuff. So I get a lot of requests to meet, and right away I size people up. Again, mostly Latinas because that's the one to reach out. But I size people up immediately on their leadership capability. Do they operate with vision? Do they come to me with an agenda? Are they prepared? Do they know what they need from me? Right? Like I just look at all these things. Do they collaborate well? Who are their mentors and sponsors? Like I ask these tough questions, and a lot of times these things are missing, right? And so as I mentor them, they develop these things, and then they're in a better position. But so as you engage, to Ruby's point, you have to be operating at a strong level or show you're on a path to operating that way. Because at the end of the day, if I see, I'm just making this up. Someone came to me and they said, hey, I want you to be my mentor. And I'll say, okay, show me, talk to me about what you're working on, what's your vision, what's your career goals. And if I see you're very prepared, you have a plan of action, you know exactly how you want to get there, you know how I can help you. Like if you have all that laid out A to Z, and I see the things you're involved in, I see the things that you're taking leadership, risks in special projects, I'll be like, yes, sign me up for that all day, every day, right? And so I'm hopeful that as we try to accelerate in the workplace, that we start doing these things. So so that we attract senior leaders to, as new positions open up, that's how you get those taps on the shoulder.
Yeah. So it really is driving results, being accountable, being competent, building up your skill set. One of the things that I've noticed that gets in the way of folks doing that is sometimes, confidence issues. How do you see that play out? Because I imagine for some of the folks, I don't know, but I'm envisioning some of the folks maybe being maybe intimidated about asking for VP sponsorship.
Yeah. And so confidence, that's probably the number one thing Latinos suffer from. Really, a lot of cultures, not just Latinos, but really first gen professionals, and is confidence, and in our mindset when it comes to I know we're getting to the leadership stuff here, which all fits together. confidence is number one. And so, it's interesting as part of my program, there's other programs, but my program, the way I approach it is the first thing I focus on is building your confidence. And the way I do that is showing you the lay of the land. Kind of to your example, Ruby, how do you get a mentor sponsor? What are they looking for? So by the time you have that conversation, you know exactly how to approach them, what to say, what to highlight, and then how to attract them to hopefully land those types of things, right? And the more you do it, as an example, with let's just say VP mentor, which is like a super mentor, by the way. The more you do these and have these conversations, and even you just do VP meet and greets, man, it just starts clicking like clockwork, right? It's you start to get more comfortable, more confident, and you know exactly what to expect in all those interactions. So by the time you actually want to ask somebody to be your mentor, it's just like boom, it's a natural fit, and you know exactly what to do and how to do it. But there's so many other topics. So whether it's, how do I leverage my culture as a superpower? So for instance, as Latinos, culture is a big part of us. So we work great in global organizations. We can connect with different cultures around the world, or we bring energy and passion, right? And we can use those for new ideas that we bring to the business world, and we can lead with our energy and our passion. Those are things that stand out because of our culture. And so yeah, I know I'm going off the rails here a little bit, Ruby, but all these things are really
no, I think it's really helpful.
Out. Yeah. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah. And we're getting some feedback in the comments just about how, sorry, I think there was a little delay there. Just some comments about, you have to own it. One of the questions that I have for you, Ref, too, is a couple times throughout this conversation, you mentioned, Latinas coming in asking you for support, like 80% of your ERG, I think you said, was Latinas. Where are all the Latino men?
I don't know, and I want to do a focus group on that. I have no idea. I'm not here to judge or anything.
Please, men, if you're listening, tell me.
There's work to do. Yeah, there's work to do.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious, and if you're listening, let us know. Is it that you feel like there's not some place for you to go? Is it like what? Someone says right here. Well, I'm glad that you're here and showing up for this conversation. But in general, it does feel like. Oh, sorry. I think there's a lag. Go ahead, Ref.
Yeah, let me position it a little bit differently. It's not just. Let me say something. When we say we're the Latino men, I almost want to say, why don't we see you out front? For instance, with the Latinas, right? They're out, just say they're out front. You know their names, you know their faces, right? You know what they're involved in. Again, I'm just speaking large, broad strokes here. But from Latino men, I do not see that. I don't see the names out there. I don't see the big volunteer, those things in big volunteer events or whatever, or even on LinkedIn. There's some of us, but we're definitely outnumbered. So I'd like to challenge the men to engage just a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I would love to see and hear from men's voices as well. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, and I see that someone has said they're right here and they're calling you right after this. So we'll have them lined up. But yeah, I'd be really curious on what some of the outcomes of that focus group is, because again, we're just not hearing about, when we think about supporting each other, we can't support each other if we don't actually know what's really going on.
That's right. But just to kind of, I know we got about 10 minutes, but just to kind of wrap things up, again, the whole spirit of this is to accelerate as a community, Latinos and Latinas, uniting, right? Being focused on developing yourself as a strong leader, holding yourself accountable for results. Contact me, contact Ruby, here to help in any way possible. We both have programs. Mine is about to come out, so look for my LinkedIn post coming out, I think this weekend, about my program, which I'm going to make available to everybody. But it's about driving accountability. It's about, your success is literally the success of all of us. And we need as many people. Latino doesn't matter. We need as many people to accelerate because we have work to do on both sides.
Yeah, the numbers are so low, and they can be. Mm-hmm. There's so much room for us to grow. So at this point, I don't think it's a matter of, getting into whether it's me or you. It's just like we need to move. We need to go. As you I think you were saying that, right? Like, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely go time. I'm tired of talking, to be honest, I'm tired. I'm already done talking about it. The numbers, I know the numbers now. I'm in space. What are we going to do about it? So again, national strategy at the individual level, develop yourself. And if you need a program, contact me, contact Ruby. Like I said, I have a program that will transform your career. I guarantee it. And I actually do a money back guarantee on that. But it's that type of thing that again, we need to do something differently.
And when's the national strategy coming out, Ruff?
It'll be this year. We're getting started on it. Yeah, it'll be this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because I think we all need to be steering the boat in one direction, right? And that's forward.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, right now it's like you said, silos, and I think maybe not even silos, but all different directions. And this thing will bring it all together. And then it's up to all of us how we plug into it or we don't. Again, it's not a requirement, but hopefully there's more of us that plug into it than not.
Yeah. And if there's one thing that, as we wrap up here, if there's one thing that you would invite our community to is in terms of like maybe a call of action or what's next, what would be the one thing that you would suggest when we're thinking about shared success and creating equity and equality?
Yeah, from my standpoint, it's easy. It's just engaging with your Latino community, even with talking with the guys, because we see we need support on both sides, right? But everybody's just start having these conversations. If you're part of an ERG or if you're part of some community, whatever it is, call together a focus group. Just start having discussions. How can you help and listen and learn? And at the work, so collectively do that. And individually focus on your development. Again, if you want to accelerate in the workplace, there's tools to do that. You just got to apply yourself and then hold yourself accountable for results.
Yeah, great. Awesome. So make sure to connect with each other also, because part of the point of this is to build community. So, if you see comments from others on here, make sure to connect with each other, connect with Ref, connect with myself. Just looking through to see if there's any other comments here. But I think if not, then we'll wrap it up here. I'm just kind of going through right now. Ref, I want to thank you for your time today, you have been a great support to me since that initial conversation that we had about a year and a half ago, maybe. And, not just being someone that amplifies my voice. Even when my son was out in Chicago last summer, and I mentioned that he was going to be checking out schools, and you said, hey, like, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with him, if he wants to talk. And he's not ready yet, but, maybe that time will come where we're entering our college senior year and exploring colleges. But you've always been, just really gracious and generous with your time and your knowledge. And I just really want to thank you for that. And thank you for always, uplifting our community and for the work that you're doing. It's really important that, we're doing more things like this, not just me and you in terms of collaboration, but that we're as a community just collaborating with each other, not seeing each other as competition or someone to move past, but really working together towards the same vision, towards the same goal, towards, breaking some of these barriers and increasing the number of the representation for Latinos in leadership spaces.
Yeah, thanks, Ruby, and thanks to you for everything. And to your point, like, I don't see anybody's competition. I mean, we're all teammates as far as I'm concerned. So anything I can do to help, literally anything, reach out to me. I'm here to help in any way I can. And Ruby, we'll continue to support each other. Love working with you and collaborating. So looking forward to the future.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Appreciate you, Ref.
Yep.